Darkness enveloped me as the attic door slammed shut behind me. My heart raced as I desperately tried the handle. Locked. I ran to the window, only to freeze at the sight of a man in the yard. His face was bruised, his clothes torn, and he was staring straight at me. Then, without warning, he started running toward the house. Returning to that old summer house brought back memories of my childhood vacations. This place, left to me by my parents, had once been a haven of peaceful days. But over the years, it had been neglected, now covered in dust and decay. I spent an entire day cleaning it to make it livable again. Cleaning such a large house required more effort than I had anticipated. Some rooms were still dirty, but I had run out of energy. As the sun set, I was utterly exhausted. I decided to stay here. I entered one of the rooms I had cleaned, lay down on the bed, and just as my eyes began to close, I was startled by a faint tapping sound from the upper floor. I sat up, trying to figure out what it was, but then I remembered the wind on the plateau. Old houses were like that. The wind would find its way in and shake everything. I tried to calm myself with that thought, but the noises continued throughout the night. Tapping sounds, creaks from the doors, as if something was moving inside the house. I felt uneasy, but I was too tired to stay awake. It's nothing, I told myself, just the wind, and eventually I fell asleep. When morning came, everything seemed normal. The sun was up, and the house was silent. When I woke up, everything appeared calm. I quickly had my breakfast and went outside to get some fresh air. The nature surrounding the plateau was peaceful with the first rays of the sun. After a brief walk, I decided to return and resume cleaning. I went upstairs and started cleaning the rooms. But after a while, I noticed something was off. A chair had moved from where I had left it yesterday, and a book that I remembered being closed on the table was now open. I froze. As my eyes darted between the book and the chair, memories of the tapping noises from the night before flooded back. This oddity sent chills down my spine. As the thoughts swirled in my mind, a sudden gust of wind blew, and I heard a sound from the attic. I froze. As uneasy as I felt, I tried to calm myself. Maybe the wind or gravity moved the objects, I thought. Still, there was a knot in my stomach, but I decided to ignore it and continue cleaning. I had just picked up the broom when I heard distinct footsteps from the attic. This time, it wasn't the wind or something else. I could clearly hear someone walking above. My heart started pounding. Panicked, I ran out of the house and straight into the yard. My hands trembling, I pulled out my phone and called the police. The police arrived quickly. They searched the house thoroughly, checking each room one by one. Finally, they went up to the attic and carefully inspected it. I held my breath while I waited. But after searching the entire house, they said they found nothing. No trace, no sound, no sign of anyone. After the police left, I was alone again. I stood in silence for a while, trying to make sense of what had happened. Were the footsteps I heard real? Or was it just my exhaustion playing tricks on me? As the questions spun in my mind, the unease inside me continued to grow. I wandered through the house for a while, but my eyes kept drifting toward the attic. It was the only place I hadn't cleaned yet. Maybe I should just clean it and then stay away from here for a while, I thought. Taking a deep breath, I headed up to the attic. When I opened the door and stepped inside, I immediately noticed something was different. When the police were here, it was just a dusty room. But now, there were old, moldy children's toys scattered across the floor, strange symbols scrawled on the walls, and pale baby clothes hanging in the corner. Even the cobwebs in the corners seemed thicker and more sinister. As I stepped further inside, The darkness seemed to envelop me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I wanted to leave immediately. But just as I turned to head toward the door, it slammed shut with a loud bang. I frantically tried the handle, but it was locked. In that moment, I realized I was trapped inside, and my heart began to race. I had no idea what was happening, but with each passing second, my fear multiplied. Not knowing what else to do, I ran to the small attic window in a panic and looked down into the yard. What I saw froze the blood in my veins. In the middle of the yard stood a man, his face bruised and battered, his clothes in tatters, staring directly at me. His eyes, though hollow, carried a threatening expression that seemed to pierce right through me. I was paralyzed with terror, watching him as he suddenly began to run, straight toward the house. My heart was pounding. I heard the sound of the door downstairs being opened. I couldn't even catch my breath as I heard footsteps echoing through the corridor below. At that moment, I felt every step, every vibration reverberate through my bones. The footsteps quickly ascended the stairs, growing closer with each step. With each thud, my fear deepened, paralyzing me further. Then, he stopped in front of the attic door. From inside, I heard the sound of nails scratching at the door. The scraping of his fingernails against the wood sliced through my nerves like a knife. I couldn't move. My eyes were fixed on the door, frozen in terror. In that instant, everything went black. Suddenly, I opened my eyes. The room was bright. It was morning. I was in my bed, breathing heavily, but I was here, in the house. Realizing that everything had been just a nightmare, I let out a sigh of relief. I tried to slow my racing heart, but then I heard a faint tapping sound inside the house. It was so familiar that I swallowed hard. My ears strained to listen for it again. A few seconds later, the same tapping echoed once more. Was it real? Or was the nightmare still happening? I lay frozen in bed, and that tapping, it was getting closer.